8 point plank. Toes on the floor, knees on the floor, elbows on the floor, hands on the floor, and we start with the hips on the floor. And make sure that your toes are, knees are hip width apart, so maybe a little bit wider than that, yeah. And elbows and hands also hip width apart, or maybe shoulder width. They can go a little bit wider, makes it a little bit harder, but make sure the elbows are a couple inches ahead of the shoulders, 2 or 3 inches max. Good. Hands slightly wider than the elbows, you got it. And then we're gonna engage the shoulders. So shoulder blades together and then shoulders down towards the hips. Yeah. Take a few breaths here, you can relax the head for now. Yeah, just find the breath first. A little bit of pressure on the hands, a little bit of pressure on the elbows, a little bit of pressure on the knees, a little bit of pressure on the toes. And then keeping the back of the neck long, lift C1 up, straight up off the ground. C2 up, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Make sure that you're not lifting the head much higher than the shoulders. Once you get there, you start to go low, T1, T2, starting to feel that tension on the front, 3, 4. Keep going a little bit more and then hold it right there. And focus on the breath. So the breath is going to be nice and expansive right through here and right in the back of the heart. Feel the tension in the front. And keeping a little bit of C1 lifting, keeping a little bit of C7 lifting. T4, 5, 6. Take one more breath. And then slowly when you lower down, hips first. And then you're going to release tension from the bottom up and come back to our template position. And here just relax. You can relax the feet if you need to. You can relax the hands. You don't have to completely sprawl on the floor. You just hold somewhat of the tension on the elbows. Another option here would be to do a child pose if you wanted to really kind of like take the energy back onto the legs a little bit more and release the upper body. But if you feel comfortable, you can do toes tucked. So a little bit of pressure, hands, elbows, knees, and toes. And remember, we're not trying to lift the head super high. It's more about keeping a straight line. We're gonna go a little bit lower here. So especially when we're going through this midsection of the thoracic spine, try to really slow it down. So C1 up, 2, 3, 4. Really pulling up. Remember, it's like strings lifting up, right? C7, good. And down the thoracic spine. Try to go a little bit lower. Hold it right there and breathe. Now when you're here, think about the knees pushing a little bit harder into the floor and maybe lift the hips a little bit higher and try to get that tension on the belly button and think about the idea of the belly button lifting up. You're trying to get those vertebrae of the lumbar spine to get a little bit higher. Breathe big, find that mid-breath, and especially here where the spine tends to have that skip, that's where we want the breath. Good, nice and long, seat, tailbone. And then when you lower down, slowly in control, hips down, releasing the low back, slowly, mid back. And you could either hold it there, you could let go of the feet, let go of the arms. Sometimes it's nice to just let go into a T and turn the head to the side. And of course, child pose is also an option. Okay, so one more. Toes, knees, elbows, hands. Hands wider than the elbows, elbows forward of the shoulders, shoulders in position, breath first. Okay, a little bit different this time. We're gonna go just tucking off the pelvis here. So find the same tension that we found when we were high up on the belly. Yeah, but don't worry so much about the head and the thoracic spine. Just find that belly tension from the bottom. And think belly button off the ground, a little more curvature on the, not an arch, but a curvature on the low back. Maybe lift the hips a little bit higher. Yeah, and think of, it's like you're trying to send your tailbone towards your knees, or even your tailbone down, back and down to the floor. So you kind of flatten a little bit more the back, and that gets the tension. Yeah, so we're coming up from the bottom up this time. Now, once you get the hips here in position, let's see if we can get the C1, C2, all this to pull up a little bit more, right? Remember, like strings, pulling, 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 pulling. And now think of the length, right? Crown of the head, C1, away from sacrum and tailbone. Tension is here. If you wanted to, you could bring right elbow to the left knee, right knee to the left elbow. That's X. Tension in the belly, right? And you're staying really nice and long here. You don't try to go with the hips super high or the torso super around or the back super high. It's really nice long tension. Bring the shoulders into position again. So shoulders back and down. Yeah, lift the hips if you can. 3 more breaths here. Big and strong. Find that length back here. Length, 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 length. Last one. And on the exhale, slowly, 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 hips down. Here, take your time. Release, and either on the floor, arms to the side, or reach elbows. And take a few breaths here. Good job.